So, folks, we have to talk about the fact that the Donald Trump administration is basically in the process of crashing and burning. And I know that that might not come as huge news to a lot of people, but like genuinely there is a limit to how many crises and how much public disapproval, how much emptying of the Trump cabinet that this administration can take while remaining functional and continuing to hold on to power. And I don't know exactly when the breaking point is going to be, but the fact that the knives are out within Trump's cabinet, I think is really, really telling. You know, we talked a little bit about Pam Bondi being fired the other day. And I gotta say, it's not a great sign of how things are going within the Trump administration cabinet that the day after she's fired, someone within the Trump administration leaks to MS Now. And I want to draw your attention to this article. Pam Bondi's portrait already taken down at Justice Department. Now, this is like well, okay, it's already taken down. So who gives a shit, right? But this isn't exactly the only thing that was leaked in this story, because the leak came with a photograph. That photograph, obtained by MS Now, is of Pam Bondi's portrait in the trash. And look, we know in the past people have been fired from different cabinet positions by other administrations, right? But usually what happens in a case like that is like it's an amicable parting, or like even if it wasn't amicable, like it's still treated as if there's mutual respect, and like it makes the story flow through the news faster. Someone went out of their way to leak that not just that like her portrait was taken down. I want to remind you guys, I believe she is serving her throughout the rest of this month before Todd Blanche fully takes over, but she's been like removed from most of her public facing appointments, not appointments, like spots on television, etc. And the fact that the administration is leaking this, well, it indicates that there is, I would say, knives aren't just out for Pam Bondi at this point. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that towards the end of this segment. But I want you to keep in mind throughout all of this that what's happening right now is there is a degree of infighting within the Trump administration, and they're looking to like take out their rivals. Okay? In addition to this, we are now seeing what Donald Trump is hoping to accomplish in beyond the midterms, right? We're starting to see this.
Pam Bondi got trash mogged. She didn't justice Max hard enough.
Exactly, Abyssal. Thank you for translating for the Gen Alpha viewers, okay? But Donald Trump has begun releasing his 2027 budget, what he wants to have passed, what his priorities are. And I do want to reiterate here, I don't think he's going to be able to get these priorities passed as part of his budget, but it's telling that he's trying to project this power right before the midterms, and it's basically going to piss everybody off. What do I mean by that? Well, I want to draw your attention to the fact that Donald Trump is effectively trying to destroy the U.S. Forest Service. This story is insane. So basically, we've got the U.S. Forest Service has been around for like over 120 years. And not only that, they are responsible for overseeing just an incalculable amount, not an incalculable, it's calculable, but like a huge amount of wilderness within America, keeping it safe, keeping it secure, knowing the trails, keeping them up, making sure people are safe when they are going out into the wilderness, right? And the Trump administration is basically closing all about all of the different offices of the U.S. Forestry Service and moving them to Utah, which is largely considered one of the most anti-Forest Service states. There is a big anti-public lands movement in Utah. I wanted to point out here let's see here. Yeah, that this is coming right after this particular story. Utah seizes control of 8 million acres of your land. How a smiling partnership hands Utah the keys to your national forests. And essentially, Utah has been in bed with the timber industry and is trying to privatize all of this public land in order to allow it to be logged. There's an anti-forest safety movement. We are so fucked. Well, but it's not necessarily an anti-forest safety movement. It's more they want to exploit the forest land for their own personal profit. This is absolutely awful. It's awful, and it seems like this is going to be something that for at least the next 2-ish years, it seems like the Trump administration is going to be able to do. And the amount of damage that can be done in that time is huge. And people are going to like feel this, right? People are going to start feeling this. Also want to point out, opening up forest lands to be logged at a time when the global carbon sinks are beginning to fail when it comes to climate change, meaning all of the natural processes that were previously absorbing some of the CO2 being emitted are basically hitting their cap. So our carbon sinks are absorbing less and less carbon. Even if emissions were to stay at the same level they are now, the level of CO2 would continue to go up in our atmosphere and increase the rate of warming that our planet is undergoing, largely because of activity like this. Like, we are talking about destruction of the environment, and that environment does something for all of us. This matters, and I want you to know we should be organizing to stop this. Now, I will say that I do think that this does present a unique opportunity for Democrats once Democrats are in power. And what I mean by that is I think that it opens up an avenue for land back. I've talked about this before on the stream, but essentially I think that one of the great things that the United States could do is transfer federal wilderness, federally owned and overseen wilderness, back to indigenous tribes. I think that that would be an excellent thing to do. And in light of how Donald Trump has absolutely eviscerated the U.S. Forestry Service, I do think that there is an opening for the United States as part of kind of a reparatory program of land back, also give funding to indigenous nations to fund an independent forest service run through the tribes. I think that that would genuinely be an incredible thing to do. I think it is an avenue for us to make this not terrible. And I think it is also a way to essentially place these lands beyond the exploitation of American businessmen. And so I think that there are a number of wins here in that particular column that indicates it's maybe a good thing to do. And tribes also need funding to manage those lands. Exactly, Werix. You understand. And I didn't know you were an attorney for one of the tribes. They'd love that. That's excellent. Thank you. All of this is happening, but the Forestry Service isn't the only thing that is being affected right now. Many of you have been really excited about the Artemis 2 launch, right? It is an ambitious project sending a manned mission farther than any other manned space mission has ever gone. And, you know, they're circling around the moon and coming on back. We're seeing pictures of the moon for the first time in 52 years, which is crazy to think about. Most of you have not been alive to see a picture of the planet Earth with you on it, right? And we're now getting those pictures. It's really cool. It's really inspiring. And just also want to point out that the agency responsible for this achievement, NASA, Donald Trump announced today that he wants to cut $5.6 trillion from NASA's budget. So that, by the way, includes a $3.4 billion cut to its science unit and a 23% cut.
Based on the Dems' reaction to Standing Rock, I don't see them returning land without some leadership replacement.
Oh, yeah, no. Saki Tanuki, you are absolutely correct. It would take a large degree of organizing, but I think if we continue, and I say we in a broader sense than just like this community, obviously, but I think the more people that get involved and the more people that advocate for progressive policies, the closer we can get to a point where Democrats as a whole can come around to support something that is unequivocally good, like land back in order to restore the Forest Service. But you are right. It does require an immense amount of organizing, but so does this current moment and the current crisis we're in. So I kind of am like, well, if we're going to be organizing to defeat fascism, we might as well be organizing to repair some of the harms of settler colonialism. But thank you for the 5 tier 1 subs. Very much appreciated. Also, Dead Domain, thank you very much for the raid. Everyone, go check out Dead Domain. Excellent content creator. They're wonderful. And yeah, so this is also happening when NASA is trying to put together a manned mission to land on the moon. They're talking about building a moon base, and Donald Trump wants to cut the budget by billions of dollars. So, that's all happening. But, at least one thing that we can take some solace in is the fact that it's the holidays. It was just Passover a couple days ago. You know what? Donald Trump put out a message in honor of Passover. Let's check it out.
To our wonderful Jewish American community and to Jews celebrating in Israel and around the world this week, I want to wish you a very happy Passover. Over 3,000 years ago, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob delivered the ancient Israelites out of slavery and brought them into the promised land. It was an amazing period of time, just like today we have an amazing period of time. The journey started with faith in God's word, and it ended with a miraculous march through the Red Sea and an astounding exodus out of Egypt. The world has never been the same. This week we recall this ancient proof of God's faithfulness and are reminded that with true faith, eternal hope, and the power of prayer, nothing can stop the people of God. As Jewish families and loved ones gather together for Seder dinner, we ask that God will continue to watch over the Jewish people and that he may continue to preserve and protect the United States of America for generations to come. Our country is doing better than it has ever done. I am very happy to report. Happy Passover.
Admittedly, I'm a bit fuzzy on different religious origin stories, as it were. But I seem to recall from my fundamentalist Christian days, reading, the Bible and the Torah and such, that there was something that happened between being freed from slavery.
Brenston McGillifart here.
And the
Mistakes on
Promised
set
Land.
are tradition. Worked Clapto the Wonder Dog in 52. Dozens of canine extras. They weren't spayed. Clapto sired 152 puppies on set. He was too tired to act.
And the damnedest thing, we all thought Clapto the Wonder Dog was a real bitch. Turned out, he was completely the opposite. The damnedest thing. God. Brenston McGillifart is my favorite. My favorite Riverboat Jack extended universe character. I enjoy him. But famously, the Jewish people being freed from slavery in Egypt, and they passed through the Red Sea, and then I seem to recall that something happened that involved them. There was like a golden idol of some kind and some commandments, and then a wandering of the desert for 40 years. And it kind of seems like maybe Donald Trump equating this story to America kind of seems weirdly apropos unintentionally. Like, it's weirdly fitting because, hey, it kind of feels right now like we're wandering a desert to atone for our sins whenever I open a fucking news website. I feel like I'm wandering a desolate, stupid wasteland. Anyway, well done, Donald Trump. Good observation. Now, of course, this particular weekend isn't just special for Jewish folks in Passover. It's also special for Christians. You know, it's Good Friday today. That's a pretty important day for Christians. And we gotta listen to what Donald Trump has to say about
God,
Good
Trump
Friday.
is the golden idol, and climate change is gonna be our desert.
You know, I didn't want to say it, but yeah. Also, Nathan, thank you for the $5 dono. And here's Donald Trump on Good Friday.
This Holy Week, I'm proud to join with Christians across the country and around the world to celebrate the most glorious miracle in all of time, the resurrection of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. In his life, Christ displayed true humility. In his death, he modeled true love. And in his resurrection from the tomb, he proved that even death itself will not silence those who place their trust in Almighty God.
I do want to say, some people have been asking if this is AI. I don't think that this is AI at all, because if it was AI, he wouldn't be struggling and like leaning forward in order to desperately try and read the teleprompter he's reading off of right now. Right? You can like see him squint and lean forward to try and read it.
As it says in...
Also, it's very clear that they're cutting from multiple angles because he's not able to read it all in one take.
Gospel of John, for God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, for whoever believes in him should not perish, but have eternal life. Eternal life, such beautiful words. This Easter, millions of Christians all over the globe will be reminded that because of what Jesus did on the cross, all of us can live every day with hope in God's promise, knowing that in the end, evil and wickedness will not prevail. In the spirit of joy and renewal this Easter, we also celebrate the extraordinary resurrection.
Are his arms shrinking? There genuinely might be an aspect of this where his body is like just wasting away. Like, look at the size of his shoulder pads. It does look like his arms are shrinking.
Of faith and religion in America. As I have often said, to be a great nation, you must have religion and you must have God.
But not like they have over in Iran, okay? They have religion and they have God, but it's not the right religion and it's not the right God, which is why we have to kill them. It's just how it works, folks. You know, I learned the other day from my good friend Pete Hegseth about this word. Beautiful word. It's called crusade. Crusade. And I thought, I said to Pete, what's that? Can I put it on a salad? And we both had a big laugh because I've never had a salad. Anyway, we've killed another 1,000 children. It's just what we're doing. Anyway, happy Easter, everybody. Like, he's genuinely one of the most evil motherfuckers that exists.
In churches across the nation on Sunday, the pews will be fuller, younger, and more faithful than they have at any time.
Oh, the pews this Sunday are going to be fuller and more faithful than at any given time. Are you sure about that? Are you sure about that?
In many, many years, religion is growing again in our country for the first time in decades. Happy Easter to all. May God bless you. May God bless the United States of America. Our country is doing so well like never before. Thank you.
Much like Jesus Christ, our country has risen from the dead. It's taken a little bit longer than 3 days, though. But we're back, baby. We're gonna walk around. We're gonna show some people some stigmata. And then, we're gonna have a second coming, all right? A second coming. A second coming, everyone. God.
I'm gonna come.
Anyway, that's these are just directly from his Truth Social. And as to, are Americans becoming more religious? Well, here's the Pew Research Center from just December of last year. Religion holds steady in America. Recent polling shows no clear evidence of a religious revival among young adults. So there is not a religious revival happening in the United States right now. There has been a story going around about how, Christianity is experiencing a revival in like the UK, and therefore it must also be having a revival in the US. And I want to let you guys know that the data for that study is deeply, deeply flawed and not, in fact, indicative of any kind of actual religious revival happening. This has been as somebody who I still have like a couple toes in the fundamentalist, like I keep tabs on like what they're talking about. So many of them have been talking about this religious revival as if it's a fact, and it's just not happening. It's fascinating. It's fascinating. Christian pandering is so goddamn easy. It really is.
I think other countries' oil problems will go away if they just go down and grab them by the straight. When you are president, they let you do that,
Well, I never really like to grab them by the straight, because, I'm not into that. I'm just not into grabbing straights. When I grab something straight, I don't want it like that. Okay? Okay? I don't want it like that. When you're a president, they just let you do it, though. But I don't want it like that. It's difficult enough listening to Trump. Indeed. Indeed, indeed. That brings us, you might have all thought this was a weird little divergence away from what's going on in the Trump White House. It's not. This is a story from earlier today, everybody. Pentagon to host Good Friday service just for Protestants, not for Catholics. So the Pentagon, the place that is in charge of the military, invited 3,500 of its employees to attend a Protestants-only church service. And it said, just a friendly reminder, there will be a Protestant service, no Catholic mass, in parentheses, for Good Friday today at the Pentagon Chapel. According to the employee who shared this, I guess so the Catholics know their kind ain't welcome, said the employee. It's so ridiculous. We have now gotten to the stage of Christian nationalism, where the Christian evangelical fundamentalists are now trying to break officially away from the Catholic conservatives. So JD Vance isn't allowed? Exactly. JD Vance isn't allowed. No JD Vance allowed. Though, Punished Mage, I do also want to note maybe the Pentagon is hosting a Catholic service, a separate but equal service for Catholics. The Protestant service is the only service scheduled in the Pentagon Chapel today, said a Pentagon spokesperson to HuffPost. It's I'm genuinely, we're watching, what we are watching right now is like a shattering of different aspects of the coalition that have held together MAGA for quite some time. Okay? And yeah, JD Vance is a Catholic. Okay? And I want you all to know, of course, many of you might be like, well, it serves JD Vance right. I bet he's really upset about this.
Religion has been rotting this country from the inside out for over 100 years. I am sorry, but somebody had to say it.
I had to agree with you, but I'm also not gonna we're not gonna go down that route today.
Please, Pope Leo, excommunicate that fucker.
God, it would be so funny if Pope Leo excommunicated Donald Trump and JD Vance at the same time. Worth noting, by the way, JD Vance is not going to be upset about this, and I say this because another story dropped today. This one caught by the Washington Post. Their tiny church is on the cover of JD Vance's new book. They don't know him. The members of a Methodist church in rural Virginia are excited, if a little confused, that the vice president's memoir of his path to Catholicism has put them in the spotlight. Donald is not a Catholic. It doesn't matter. Excommunicate him anywhere for the lulz. Okay? You guys are all like, oh, Donald Trump isn't Catholic. I don't care. The man in a funny hat can excommunicate who he wants. Let him do it. Let him have this. You might be wondering to yourselves, well, okay, it's a tiny church, it's a Methodist church, but was it always a Methodist church? And the answer to that is yes. What it doesn't have, members said, any connection to Vance or Catholicism. So something tells me that JD Vance is not going to be too fussed about being kept out of a Protestants-only service. Vance, to his knowledge, has never visited. I'd have to see it to believe it, a retired dairy farmer said of the cover. As congregants dug into broccoli casserole, the internet was chattering about Vance's memoir cover art. Critics mocked the vice president for putting a United Methodist Church on the front of a book tracking his road from loose evangelicalism to teenage Pentecostalism to atheism to Catholicism. Also, can I just say, JD Vance getting into like Pentecostalism, that weirdly fits. It weirdly makes a lot of sense to me, you know? I can see him really getting a kick out of like the kind of church where like they drink poison in front of their congregants to prove their faith in God, you know? Let's continue going on, because the story about what's going on in the Trump White House continues. Now, a lot of you might remember or vaguely recall that the United States is in the process of being at war with Iran and dealing with a global crisis as a result. And of course, Iran's response and retaliation is of catastrophic, economic proportions, right? It is affecting the United States quite a bit, as well as other countries around the world, right? So, of course, the White House has to prioritize urgent national action to save college sports, according to an executive order. America's system of college sports has long provided scholarships and life-changing educational, athletic, and leadership opportunities to millions of America's future leaders and formed an important part of our national fabric. In July, I signed an executive order to protect college sports from endless lawsuits and destabilizing financial obligations that could jeopardize women's and Olympic sports. But it's become clear that more comprehensive executive action is required before college sports are lost forever. Also, just want to note that this executive order is full of typos, like just missing spaces and shit. Like it's amateur hour right now. Is this a trans thing too? Yeah, no, of course it's just an anti-trans executive order. Again, basically a lot of it has to do with whether or not like trans girls are getting scholarships or educational opportunities, etc. Like it's stupid as fuck. It's really, really stupid. The convergence of enormous pressure to win in football and basketball, the loosening, both by litigation and by state legislation, of consistent rules or limits concerning eligibility, transfers, and pay-for-play schemes has created an out-of-control financial arms race in these sports that is driving universities into debt, threatening to siphon resources from other sports, and damaging student-athletes' educational and graduation opportunities. The athletics-related financial threats these crucial universities face are substantial. Already, one major athletic program closed fiscal year 2025 with $535 million in athletics-related debt. Another has $437 million in such debt, while others face enormous annual athletics-related deficits. These financial perils will inevitably siphon funds from universities' education and research purposes. Just want to point out, university sports make ungodly amounts of money for the universities. But no. The war in Iran, what is that to the Olympics and college sports? Seems like not the thing to talk about right now, particularly. But, maybe it was all in the works. Who can say? Anyway, everything must be going pretty well right now because Donald Trump has nothing to hide. Which, wait a minute, what is this article? Trump administration's challenge of Watergate-era records law alarms historians. Scholars warn that DOJ's declaration that the Presidential Records Act is unconstitutional could impact other administrations. For those of you who haven't heard about this particular story is essentially about how Donald Trump is trying to say when his tenure as president is done, he doesn't have to release records from this administration to the National Archives. This would be in violation of the law that requires presidents to turn over their records that was passed after Watergate. And of course this would have impacts on other administrations in the future, but the Department of Justice put out a memo, which I have right here, that is frankly insane. We're just going to read like the first page of it. Constitutionality of the Presidential Records Act. The Presidential Records Act is unconstitutional because it exceeds Congress's enumerated and implied powers and aggrandizes the legislative branch at the expense of the constitutional independence and autonomy of the executive. Memorandum opinion for the Council of to the President. You've asked whether the Presidential Records Act of 1978 is constitutional. We conclude that it is not. The PRA is unconstitutional for two independent but interlocking reasons. It exceeds Congress's enumerated and implied powers, and it aggrandizes the legislative branch at the expense of the constitutional independence and autonomy of the executive. Every law enacted by Congress must be based on one or more of its powers enumerated in the Constitution, or such implied powers as are necessary and proper to carry into effect the enumerated powers. And congressional attempts to regulate the presidency directly raise heightened separation of powers concerns. The PRA extends the oversight power because it serves exceeds the oversight power because it serves no identifiable and valid legislative purpose. It exceeds any preservation power because Congress cannot preserve presidential records merely for the sake of posterity. It exceeds Congress's regulatory power over statutory agencies because it purports to regulate a constitutional office, the presidency, that Congress did not create and that Congress cannot abolish. It exceeds the spending power because that power allows Congress to incentivize outcomes with federal funding, not to directly regulate coordinated branches of government. And it exceeds Congress's power to assist in the executive in execution of the powers vested in the coordinate branches because it restricts rather than empowers the president. And I think that this is maybe one of the most insane sentences I've ever read. Okay? It exceeds Congress's power to assist in the execution of the powers vested in the coordinate branches because it restricts rather than empowers the president. Congress can absolutely pass laws that affect the president. What are you talking about? Like, I'm sorry. If Congress passes a law that it's illegal to murder someone, the president, I know Donald Trump might think to the contrary, can't just walk out into the street and shoot someone dead. That is not actually a thing the president can do. The president is clearly confined in some way by the laws passed by Congress. Just as Congress could not constitutionally invade the independence of the Supreme Court and expropriate the papers of the Chief Justice or Associate Justices, Congress cannot invade the independence of the President and expropriate the papers of the Chief Executive. This memo is fucking insane. It's insane. It is going to be used as an attempt to justify Donald Trump yet again stealing highly classified materials from the US government and presumably selling them or giving them to the highest bidders. Again, this all is absolutely illegal. This should be grounds for removing him immediately. As we continue to organize, we need to be demanding that Donald Trump be impeached and removed from office. This is frankly just an inexcusable breach of our entire system. The idea that the president is beyond investigation, the president is beyond needing to give up records, the president can treat those records as personal property, take them where he or she will, burn them if he or she wanted to. Worth noting that destruction of said records is also something that this memo is saying that a president could do with their records. Is there any hope of overturning this somehow? I heard it earlier and my jaw dropped. So it is important to note that this is just a memo from the Justice Department. Now, typically memos from the Justice Department have been treated as guidelines that the Justice Department is obliged to follow in the future. However, what we're talking about is something that is so blatantly against all norms, against all laws, against any understanding of the Constitution that's functional, that, again, stuff like this, any future Justice Department that comes into being under, like, say, a Democratic president, this needs to be fucking wiped off the books. There needs to be, like, a day one action that just says anything any memos that the Trump Justice Department put out are non-binding and we will not follow them. You know? These should not be used as precedent. These should not be used as the method by which we actually do things. The fact that this is where we're at right now is frankly a bit terrifying. And now we get, I know we've been talking about so many different things, but now we get to the new constitutional crisis that is happening, right? Because effectively, what I've described to you are numerous different crises. And this DOJ memo I just talked about is, I would describe it as in the early stages of a constitutional crisis. However, what we're going to talk about next is an actual and ongoing, pretty big constitutional crisis. And that is, as articulated by Don Moynihan. I recommend you guys follow Don's work. Does excellent journalism. I'm gonna link this piece here to you guys. But basically, Don Moynihan in this piece from several days ago, about a week ago, describes that Mike Johnson has basically set us all up for a constitutional crisis. Now, the outline of this argument is that because Democrats have been holding the line in the Senate and keeping DHS shut down and unfunded, what has now happened is that, of course, Republicans tried to get through essentially like a stopgap measure, where reopen DHS except for ICE, and maybe in the future we'll get funding for ICE. Take away that pain point of TSA agents not getting paid. Now, Mike Johnson, after the Senate already left town, all the Republican senators already left, Mike Johnson basically ripped that legislation that had been sent back from the Senate to the House and said, this is a joke. We demand full funding for DHS, and we will not make any kind of compromise. That effectively leaves DHS completely unfunded. However, what Don Moynihan points out is that what is really at stake here in this particular contest between Republicans and Democrats is who has the power of the purse. Is it Congress or is it the president? The Constitution explicitly gives Congress the power of the purse, the power to appropriate money, spend money, etc. And the president is entrusted to fulfill the budgets that Congress passes. Meaning that the president is not authorized under the Constitution to, say, withhold funding from different agencies that Congress has funded, to unilaterally decide that different initiatives should not be funded. And equally, the president is not empowered to fund agencies that Congress has not funded. And Don Moynihan points out here that part of the issue that we are now facing down is that earlier last year, many of you might remember that the budget crisis led to a partial government shutdown. And that partial government shutdown resulted in soldiers not receiving paychecks. And what happened at that point was Donald Trump stepped in and paid our soldiers, which is in fact a violation of the Constitution and a violation of the separation of powers, right? But very few people complained about it or pointed out that this was a violation because, well, those soldiers deserve their paychecks. Because if you don't pay soldiers, really bad shit happens. We are in a situation where DHS is not funded, TSA workers are not getting paid. The pain point is painful. And that brings us to today. Liberating the Department of Homeland Security from the Democrat-caused shutdown. Presidential memoranda. Nearly 7 weeks have elapsed since Democrats shut down the Department of Homeland Security to prevent the brave men and women who work for U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement and U.S. Customs and Border Protection from performing their duties to secure the country's borders and enforcing our immigration laws. More than 35,000 employees, including Coast Guard civilians, Federal Emergency Management Agency employees, helping to prepare the nation for disaster response, and cybersecurity professionals at the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, have gone without a paycheck for nearly 2 months because of congressional Democrats. As a result, thousands of DHS employees, and I want to remind you guys, it's not because of congressional Democrats. It's quite literally, oh God, even the White House webpage has fucking pop-ups now. It's not because of congressional Democrats, it's because congressional Republicans ripped up the deal that was passed. As a result, thousands of DHS employees who are performing their critical public safety responsibilities are struggling to make ends meet and provide for their families. This callous treatment of DHS employees must end in order to ensure that America is not susceptible to security threats and maintains readiness to respond to emergencies. As President of the United States, I have determined that these conditions constitute an emergency situation compromising the nation's security. Accordingly, I hereby direct the Secretary of Homeland Security, in coordination with the Director of the Office of Management and Budget, to use funds that have a reasonable and logical nexus to the functions of DHS to provide each and every employee of DHS with the compensation and benefits that would have accrued to them if not for the Democrat-led DHS shutdown, consistent with applicable law. Once regular funding for DHS has been restored, every effort should be made, as authorized by law, to adjust applicable funding accounts within DHS to ensure the continuation of DHS operations and activities consistent with planned expenditures prior to the lapse. Nothing in this memorandum shall be constituted to impair or otherwise affect the authority granted by law to an executive department or agency or the head thereof, or the functions of the Director of Office and Management and Budget relating to budgetary, administrative, or legislative proposals. This memorandum shall be implemented consistent with applicable law and subject to the availability of appropriations. This memorandum is not intended to and does not create any right or benefit substantive or procedural, enforceable at law, or in equity by any party against the United States, its department, agencies, or entities, its officers, employees, or agents, or any other person, Donald J. Trump. Now, I do want to point out a couple of things here, which is, one, this is wildly unconstitutional. Wildly unconstitutional. This is directing blatantly unconstitutional activity. And again, if this is allowed to go through, it further erodes the ability of Congress to actually function. It takes more power away from Congress. It means that the president can unilaterally move funds around as the president will. And this is actually terrible. This is a terrible, terrible thing. And also, it's worth noting that the second biggest paragraph in this is the last one, which effectively is just saying, please don't hold me legally liable for unconstitutional activity. OC, please do not steal. Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't this basically Trump using ICE not just as his personal army, but also now as his personal piggy bank? Yes. That is effectively what it translates to, because the appropriations available are from ICE. Right? From Customs and Border Patrol. This needs to be fought tooth and nail. This needs to be fought tooth and nail. We are in the middle of possibly the biggest constitutional crisis of our time, and I am terribly worried that a lot of elected officials are just going to shrug and let it happen, but understand what is happening here, right? Not only is ICE the personal army and Customs and Border Patrol the personal army of Donald Trump, his brown shirts, but also they are now his slush fund. And also, he's disempowering Congress, rendering it even less effective than it already is, and it's already very ineffective. And also, he is using an unconstitutional power, an unconstitutional move here to end the negotiations in Congress, to effectively remove the key negotiating component that Democrats had on this issue. So, like, I mean, yeah, exactly, Celestial Heart. Trump controls who gets paid, who's in the military, who dies, who doesn't. Once he's taken the treasury and Hegseth is done purging the military, it's over. I mean, yeah, essentially. How do you take a power of the purse court case to court? No idea. Not a lawyer. So everything he's doing is illegal, pretty much. Yeah, and I know many of you could have intuited that, but like, we needed to talk about this because this is fucking crazy. This enrages me in a way that no other aspect of the stories today have, in large part by the fact that I feel like he might get away with this. I feel like a lot of people are just going to shrug at this story and not really understand the implications because congressional Democrats are not doing a good job at all of communicating and articulating exactly the stakes at play here. Senate and House Republican leaders announced on Wednesday agreement to move forward with legislation to reopen the Department of Homeland Security. That it doesn't really matter if they agree on a plan if Dems don't agree to it. So yeah, I'm not seeing any meaningful statements being put out by Senate or congressional Dems. This executive order came out 9 hours ago. It could be that just like they need time to prep their comms, but like even so, like this is a really fucking big deal. There's 8 to 9 million people show up. Why does it feel like nothing happened? In part because mainstream media does not cover No Kings. Like there were mainstream media outlets talking about how tens of thousands of people showed up to No Kings 3. It was the largest single day of protest in American history, and mainstream networks covered it like it was a tiny protest. Like, in part, a lot is happening with the ascent of the mainstream media. Well, yeah, the Bulwark is not a leftist organization. The Bulwark is largely in lockstep with groups like a Third Way. It's just that the Bulwark does a lot of actual reporting too. My local TV station didn't cover No Kings. Exactly. Like a lot of people who are not locked into politics right now, just it hasn't been on their radar. But yeah, this story makes me mad. We're not done with this segment though yet, guys, because I did want to end on a couple of things here, which is that Donald Trump is fucking crashing out right now. Okay? And I wanted to talk about a couple of different things going on in his administration. In particular, it is blatantly obvious at this point that the Trump administration is trying to go into hide our crimes mode. We are effectively looking at and staring down a paradigm shift here in America, where when Democrats take over possibly both the House and the Senate, they are going to have the ability to start subpoenaing and summoning different Trump administration officials in front of the entire country, getting them on the record under oath, and potentially prosecuting them if they refuse to do so. And to that end, the Trump administration is trying to destroy data. And one of the stories that I saw really exemplifies this, which is this particular one from Politico. The Treasury Office moves to gut Financial Research Office. Now, what this means is effectively that Scott Bessent is trying to defund and eliminate the part of the Treasury Department that is responsible for essentially projecting economic data. Not only that, the main responsibility of this office, it's called the Office of Financial Research, is to look into how to keep the economy stable. What are the risks to the economy? And you might think, that seems like a useful thing to have. When was that established? It was established in 2008, after the financial collapse. It was specifically set up so we never would have another Great Recession ever again. Scott Bessent eliminated 63% of its staff. Like, it's, not going to help it function better to do that. Now, you might think, well, okay, maybe this is part of a move to try and, I don't know, save taxpayers money. Maybe it's a really expensive office. Nope. It's funded by fees taken from large financial institutions. So it costs taxpayers literally no money to have those people employed monitoring the financial health of our entire economy. The economy of a nation of over 300 million people. Now, it does seem like they are, they're looking to cut more people. There was, at the beginning of 2025, when Trump came into office, almost 200 full-time employees. That number has now been cut down to 70. This is effectively a handout to financial corporations. It is basically a handout because they're no longer going to be charged fees in this way, as well as a handout to riskier and riskier lending. The things that this office was specifically assigned to monitor so that our entire economy didn't, get roped up into some kind of crypto scam or AI scam. It's gone now, or rather drastically hobbled. Of course, we also have to talk about Donald Trump's new proposed budget, which increases the budget of the military by over $500 billion. I do want to say the good news about this one, and the reason I've kind of saved it for last, is the fact that this budget needs to be required by Congress. This budget is not going to get through Congress. Congressional Democrats are not going to go along with this $500 billion increase that is going to cut social programs across the country by unimaginable amounts of money. Okay? They want to spend a whole $1.5 trillion in 2027 on the military. I don't think this is going to go anywhere. I think this is wishful thinking. I think that is what Donald Trump is going to try and get. I don't think he's going to get it. I did want to end on potentially one positive note and one incredibly stupid note that has come out of the White House today. Number one is that Pam Bondi is not the only person who is going to find her photograph in the trash, according to folks in the White House. People magazine reports Donald Trump is looking at more cabinet cuts after ousting Noam and Bondi. Reports claim he's very angry. The president has specifically expressed frustrations with Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick and Labor Secretary Lori Chavez de Remer, according to a Politico report published Thursday. He's very angry and he's going to be moving people, an administration official familiar with Trump's thinking told that outlet. And Chavez de Remer is under investigation by the Labor Department's Inspector General. And also Lutnick, who is, of course, an associate of both Epstein and Trump, has not been making him look very good, and also has agreed to testify in front of a House panel investigating the Epstein files. Kind of seems like he's really mad at Howard Lutnick for agreeing to talk about Epstein to Congress. I wonder why. Can't quite put it together. I think more heads are going to be rolling here. Another senior official told the outlet that the potential reshuffling is focused on individuals who Trump feels have underperformed or who have generated too much negative attention. President Trump has the most talented cabinet and team in American history, White House spokesman Davis Ingle told People when reached out for comment. Patriots like FBI Director Kash Patel, Army Secretary Driscoll, Secretary Lori Chavez DeRemer, and Secretary Howard Lutnick are tirelessly implementing the president's agenda and achieving tremendous results for the American people. It's incredible how every single one of these spokespeople for Donald Trump sound like they're talking with a gun pointed directly at their head. Like, every single one of their statements sounds like they're a fucking North Korea PR person, and if they say one wrong thing, their family is going to be killed. It's crazy. So, yeah. There's a lot going on here, and I would expect as pressure mounts from the Epstein investigation, from the war in Iran, from the economic pressure that is being applied domestically and internationally, the diplomatic pressure that is being placed, I would expect Donald Trump to continue cracking, especially with his dementia worsening, of course. So, like, we've got several different aspects crushing this administration right now. And I think it's somewhat telling that, of course, in the midst of all of this, Donald Trump seems to be just thinking about different vanity projects that he would just really, really like. And of course, many of you might be thinking I'm talking about his ballroom, but no, I'm talking about Donald Trump doing one of the stupidest things that he could possibly do, which is reopen Alcatraz. This story is apparently real. I thought this idea died last year, but it's back. It's risen from the grave. Just like Jesus Christ. See, look at how this entire segment, it's very long, but it's looped back around on itself. It all fits together. It's like poetry, it rhymes. And yeah, basically, Donald Trump wants to have $150 million to reopen Alcatraz. Good Lord, why? Because he thinks Alcatraz is really tough. Because he saw movies about Alcatraz when he was young. And so he thinks Alcatraz is tough and cool. And yes, Comrade Girl 2018, the reason Alcatraz isn't in operation anymore is because it costs a lot of money to ship everything to it by boat. Like, you have to ship everything there for no reason. You could just put a prison on the mainland, and then you don't have to put it all the things necessary to run it on a boat. One of the big problems with Alcatraz is that there's no source of fresh water on the island, so the fresh water has to be brought in. I'm so sick and tired of our Make-A-Wish president. Yeah, really? The Make-A-Wish Foundation has gone too far this time. He's villain maxing. It's so stupid. We live in one of the stupidest times in American history, and I never thought the crises we would be facing would be composed of this much stupidity. You know? I was never prepared for this. I was prepared for, like, competent evil. I was prepared for, disasters out of nowhere. I was prepared for a lot of things. I wasn't prepared for incompetent, stupid evil. Yeah, the Nazis were stupid as fuck too. That's true. I wasn't prepared for how stupid things were gonna get here. Like, I thought George W. Bush was kind of like the cap for how stupid things could get in America. But boy howdy was I wrong. Boy howdy has the Trump administration absolutely shattered that cap. It's so stupid and so consequential, I hate it. It's genuinely disturbing how consequential the stupidity is. But, yeah, there you go, folks. The Trump administration is just one gigantic dumpster fire after another. It's like an entire pile of dumpster fires, all converging into one single conflagration. And the only way out is through it. The only way out is by organizing. The only way out is by getting involved with your local DSA and organizing working people in your community. The only way out is by joining your local Dems and making them more progressive, kicking out those more conservative elements of the Democratic Party. You got to do it. You got to show up to those meetings. You got to make friends. You got to be known and get known. Okay? You got to get all that knowing of other people. You got to network. You've got to actually build relationships. Because by doing that, you can build a sustainable movement for change in this country.
We're reaching levels of stupid never thought possible.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. The Nazis were not defeated by elected officials. I'm sorry, am I talking about elected officials right now? I'm so fucking sick of people coming in here and be like, did you know the Nazis weren't defeated by, like, I fucking know that. But you know what they were defeated by? Organized people working together to bring them down. God, you guys hear a message about organizing together and working together as people on the ground, and then you have a fucking conniption about the idea of that actually working. Listen to the words I'm saying. Stop being so fucking lib-brained about this. God. It's so frustrating to me. I know you know too many. It's true. Too many people do think like Congress is on this. They're not. I'm sorry I snapped. I do want to say that despite my pleasant, general joking demeanor, all of this makes me so deeply angry. And it's hard for me to not snap. I apologize. Appreciate you. Gonna tamp that down again. But also, I need you guys to understand the one thing that gets us out of this is by organizing together. That is the one thing that gets us out. It is the one thing that stops fascism in its tracks. It is organized people working together to stop them. Worked in Minnesota. It can work for you. It works everywhere it is tried because there is not a fucking gear that turns without working people coming together and stopping this shit. When we get together, enough of us, there is nothing that can stop us. And that is why it is of paramount importance not to just know that everything is stupid, not to just know that these people are evil, not to just know what good policy is. It's why it's important to get involved and get organized. And I know that our different groups and organizing tools that are available are imperfect. I am well aware of that. I'm not saying that it is an easy endeavor. I'm not saying that it is necessarily going to always be the most fun time. But I am saying that this is the one way out for us. And I think we have to try. All I want to say is join your local Dems, make them not shit. Join your local DSA, make them effective. Let us make all of our communities, all of our towns, all of our cities effective hubs for organizing so that we can put a stop to this, so that we can build a movement that erases the ability of the Trump administration, of the MAGA movement, of the conservative worldview to dominate all life on this planet. Because if we do not stop them, that is what it will seek to do until we are destroyed or everyone is subjugated. And that is unacceptable. So anyway, get organized. And if you got anything out of this, hit the like button, subscribe, and leave a comment. Comments longer than 8 words help in the algorithm. And last but not least, check out ImogeneOlivia.com. Gender euphoric lingerie designed from the ground up for trans femmes. Also tested with cis men, cis women, non-binary folks. It is elegant, non-tucking lingerie that fits and is sexy. ImogeneOlivia.com. Link down in the description. Let's keep on going.
Riverboat Jack is coming to town. All the viewers gather around. Twitch and YouTube and swishy streams. All that content is bursting the scenes. Politics, gaming, plenty more. Your sense of fashion you'll adore. So grab your stuff and hop aboard. We're going straight to Jack's Discord.